It was a chilly autumn evening when I first encountered the eerie phenomenon of phantom phone calls. My family had recently moved into an old mansion nestled in the outskirts of a quiet town. The house had an air of mystery about it, with its creaking floors and shadowy corners that seemed to hold secrets of their own. As the sun set and darkness enveloped the surroundings, I found myself alone in the house. My parents having gone into town for some last minute errands, I decided to make myself comfortable in the living room, choosing a book to read by the flickering light of the fireplace. Just as I began to immerse myself in the story, the silence was shattered by a sudden, shrill ringing. Startled, I jumped in my seat, looking around for the source of the sound. I followed the sound to the old rotary phone sitting atop a dusty table against the wall. Its bells continued to ring, even though I knew it wasn't connected to any active phone line. Curiosity overcoming my apprehension, I cautiously picked up the receiver. A shiver ran down my spine as I heard a faint whisper on the other end, like a distant ethereal voice. It sounded like words, but they were indecipherable, carried on a spectral breeze. My heart raced, and I quickly hung up the phone, telling myself it was a prank or some kind of electrical glitch. Yet, a sense of unease had settled upon me, and I found it difficult to shake off the feeling that something was watching me from the shadows. I resumed my reading, trying to distract myself, but the memory of that eerie call lingered like a ghostly presence. Days turned into weeks, and the bizarre phone calls continued, always happening when I was alone. Each time, the whispers grew clearer, yet remained unintelligible, as if they were from a realm beyond our understanding. I confided in my parents, who dismissed it as my imagination running wild, blaming it on the stress of moving to a new place. One night, unable to ignore the enigma any longer, I decided to research the history of the mansion. In the town's dusty archives, I stumbled upon a chilling tale that sent shivers down my spine. It turned out that the mansion had once been home to a reclusive scientist named Dr. Alexander Hartman. He had been known for his eccentric experiments involving communication with the afterlife. Rumors circulated that Dr. Hartman had used a device resembling a telephone to attempt contact with the other side, seeking to bridge the gap between the living and the dead. His experiments had ended in tragedy when an otherworldly force supposedly consumed him, leaving only whispers and eerie occurrences in its wake. The realization struck me like a lightning bolt. The phantom phone calls were a remnant of Dr. Hartman's experiments, an echo from the past that had somehow transcended time. I delved deeper into the mystery, desperate to find a way to put an end to the unsettling calls. But the more I learned, the more I realized that the lines between the living and the dead had become blurred, and Dr. Hartman's restless spirit seemed to be reaching out for something or someone. One fateful night, as the moon cast eerie shadows across the mansion, I found myself once again standing before the old rotary phone. Summoning all my courage, I picked up the receiver and listened as the whispers grew louder and more coherent. It was Dr. Hartman's voice, desperate and filled with longing. He spoke of unfinished experiments, of a rift that had been torn between realms, and of his yearning for release. Tears welled in my eyes as I realized that his spirit was trapped, unable to move on until his experiments were completed or his connection with the living world was severed. With a trembling hand, I dialed the number he recited, a sequence that seemed to defy conventional reality. As the call connected, a blinding light enveloped me, and for a moment, I felt as if I was suspended between two worlds. When the light subsided, I found myself back in the living room, the old phone now silent and lifeless. The mansion felt different, lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. I knew then that Dr. Hartman had found the closure he sought, and the barrier between the realms had been mended. The phantom phone call ceased, and the mansion gradually transformed from a place of mystery and fear into a home filled with warmth and comfort. I often think back to that haunting chapter of my life, to the eerie whispers that bridged the gap between the living and the dead. And while the memory still sends shivers down my spine, it also reminds me of the profound connection that can exist between the realms of the known and the unknown.